All right. I want to talk about alternative meat products as well. We've talked about eggs and dairy, and now I want to talk about alternative meat. We still see so many of the same painful procedures, debeaking of chickens, tail docking and cutting of pigs, ear notching, tooth filing, castration, dehorning. I'm not going to get into the details of all these horrible things that happen to these poor animals. But just suffice it to say that there are numerous horrible, painful things that are just universal and standard practice. And the transportation is terrible in all extremes of weather to the slaughterhouse. And, again, it's the same slaughterhouse as all the other animals. There's no special slaughterhouse that they're going to. So I want to talk. This is some new information that I have just dug into. And this is a study that just came out in 2020. And it's called the Animal Welfare and Production Challenges Associated with Pastured Pig Systems. And what these researchers did is they studied 20 years from 2000 to 2020, 20 years of studies and articles on pastured pig production, pork production, both organic and pasture when they're actually out on pasture, truly free range. And it's the study, it's really fascinating because it just underscores the myriad of problems with free ranging animals and putting animals out on pasture. There's this romanticized notion that that animals out on the field that are not in the buildings are that all the welfare issues are just eliminated if you just get them out of the confinement buildings. But it's just simply not the case, unfortunately. These are domesticated animals. They're not wild animals. And there's a range of issues that can happen that they can suffer from, and sometimes suffer even worse than in the confinement. So they found in this study that there was exposure to extreme temperatures, heat stress, not being able to find adequate shade. So depending on the paddock that they're in, unless there's trees or buildings that provide shade, that provide a windbreak, they can be exposed to some severe weather that if it was a natural situation, they would seek out areas that would protect them from the weather, but they can get sunburn, blistering, especially the pigs with lighter skin can have blistering, extreme cold, frostbite. Piglets have gotten hypothermia, pneumonia. They're more vulnerable to predators, of course. There's more contact with wildlife, with pathogens, parasites. And they found that pastured pork has a much higher risk of having salmonella, campylobacter, a whole host of other things that I cannot pronounce that you don't want in your food. So that's another huge factor. And there's also complexity in the process and monitoring and treating of sick animals. So identifying sick animals and treating them, it's more difficult when they're out on pasture. So, there's again, not all welfare issues are just eliminated by this one thing, the one thing, cage free, free range. There's so many other factors involved in their welfare. And this paper only covered on the farm welfare. It didn't even go into transportation, the slaughterhouse, all the other horrors that they endure in that process. That wasn't in the scope of the study, but it was really fascinating to see how much harm they found in pastured and free range pork, pigs. So I'm going to wrap up the ethical section, the welfare section now, and we're going to switch gears to environmental. But I just want to say, please don't disconnect to the emotional reality of the violence that it is to kill an animal that doesn't want to die, an animal that is just in the beginning of their life. Killing an animal that doesn't want to die can never be compassionate, kind, ethical, humane. So here's a quote from a former small scale goat farmer. She said, "To watch a sentient being gasp for air and to look into his eyes filled with fear and to see the blood coming from his neck, it's the most heart-wrenching, awful thing." So please be on the compassionate side of history and get animal products out of your diet and live vegan for the animals.